The room is empty, dispatch said through Ethan Mercer's radio as the lock flashed green. Ethan paused with his service card against the brass reader. Beside the door, the room status panel showed vacant in steady blue letters while a red maintenance indicator blinked beneath it. Executive prep room, level 26, he replied. I have a controller fault. Copy. No occupant listed. Security received the executive access notice. Ethan knocked with the back of his knuckles. Once. Twice. A garment steamer hissed beyond the door, swallowing the sound. He waited, announced maintenance, then opened the door no wider than his shoulder. Warm mist drifted into the cool corridor. The air smelled of coffee, pressed linen, and citrus polish. Ethan saw a folding screen, a white blouse stained brown across one sleeve, and Claire Whitmore turning toward him with a clean shirt only partly fastened. He looked away before surprise could become a second glance. I'm closing the door, he said. Claire's voice cut through the steam. What are you doing in here? Ethan drew the door nearly shut, while keeping one hand on the edge so it would not swing back toward her. Two banquet attendants rounded the corner with garment bags. He raised his free hand without facing the room. Occupied. Please give her space. One attendant lowered the phone she had been carrying at chest height. The other turned the garment rack around. Ethan stepped fully into the hallway and let the door close. Did you knock? Claire asked from inside. Twice. I didn't hear you. I know. His answer carried no accusation, only fact. A moment later, Claire opened the door herself. She wore a charcoal jacket now, her hair pinned back, one cuff still undone. At 38, the CEO of Whitmore Hospitality Group was accustomed to rooms being prepared before she entered them. This one had betrayed her before she had spoken a word. Her eyes moved from Ethan's faded name patch to the service card in his hand. Who authorized access? The work order and the panel. He pointed to the blue word beside her shoulder. Claire turned. Vacant still glowed. This room was reassigned to me 20 minutes ago. The status never updated. That isn't supposed to happen. No. Ethan crouched near the lower controller without touching it. The display showed no local alarm, only the unresolved maintenance fault that had brought him upstairs. The event log will tell us whether the status froze or someone forced it. Footsteps struck the marble at the far end of the corridor. Security Director Nolan Price approached with two officers, alerted automatically when a service credential opened an executive room outside its scheduled access window. He looked first at Claire, then at Ethan's card. Ms. Whitmore, are you safe? Yes. Nolan held out an evidence sleeve. Mr. Mercer, I need the card. Ethan placed it inside. Behind Nolan, the ceiling camera pointed directly at the door. It would show Ethan entering. It would not record the blue panel, the two knocks, or the way he had turned his back. Claire noticed the camera too. Her fingers closed around her unfinished cuff. Preserve the controller event log, Ethan said. Nolan sealed the sleeve. Operations manages that system. Ethan looked at the panel, still insisting the occupied room was empty. Then preserve it before operations changes anything. The security room smelled of burnt coffee and warm plastic, and the 7 seconds on the monitor made Ethan look guilty before anyone asked what the building had told him. The footage showed him approach Claire's door, pause, use his service card, and disappear inside. There was no sound, no view of the vacant display, no image of the attendants. He had stopped farther down the corridor. Nolan froze the video on Ethan's hand touching the reader. The work order confirms a controller fault, he said, but the room status log is still held on the operations server. Victor Hale stood behind Claire with his suit jacket folded over one arm. The image is clear enough, he said. An employee entered the CEO's changing room. Ethan kept his voice level. I entered a room the certified panel marked empty. A representative from Human Resources slid an incident statement across the desk. The first paragraph read, I entered without confirming occupancy. Ethan opened the metal lunch tin he had carried upstairs and searched for a pen. Beneath a wrapped sandwich lay a small cardboard door painted red. Sadie had made it for her hotel model and written across the back in pencil, opens from the inside. Claire saw the words before Ethan turned the piece over. Your daughter? She asked. 11. She builds doors. She builds reasons people need them. Ethan drew one line through the sentence on the form, wrote his correction in the margin, and initialed it. You can submit an addendum, Nolan said. I'll attach both versions. Ethan wrote. The room status panel displayed vacant, and the assigned work order authorized inspection. Claire watched him date each change. He was not pleading with her, flattering her, or threatening the company. He was protecting the record one sentence at a time. That altered the way she looked at him. Victor placed a second document on the table. Counsel prepared a proposed separation and release. 2 months' pay, continued benefits, confidentiality, and non-disparagement. You do not have to sign tonight. You may have an attorney review it. Ethan read the first page, then closed it. Does accepting this correct the incident report? It resolves exposure for everyone, Victor said. That wasn't my question. Claire turned toward Nolan. Have you preserved the video access history? Yes. For authenticated accounts viewed it before the archive was frozen. No export is recorded yet. And the room status logs? Operations requested administrative control 7 minutes after the incident. Claire's eyes moved to Victor. He checked his watch. Routine system management. Ethan returned the pen to his lunch tin and lifted the cardboard door carefully so the hinge would not bend. I filed 3 fault reports on that floor. Nolan searched the active database. I see 1. Closed last month. There were 3. Who received them? Claire asked. Operations Administration. She took the event number from Nolan and wrote it on the back of her conference program. Preserve the server and locate the other 2. Ethan was escorted out 10 minutes later with his toolbox and no service card. At home, Sadie sat cross-legged beneath the yellow kitchen light, fitting tiny wires into her model hotel. One red exit sign refused to turn on. Ethan knelt beside her without removing his work boots. You're early, she said. Temporary change. She studied his face, but did not press him. Instead, she handed him the loose cardboard door. His phone vibrated on the counter. A parent from Sadie's school had sent a link to a local gossip account. The thumbnail was a grainy image of Ethan entering Claire's room. The clip had been online for 12 minutes, even though Nolan had said no export appeared in the security archive. They're saying you broke into her room, Sadie said, staring at the phone on the kitchen counter. Ethan reached past her and turned the screen face down. The small red door rested between them, one hinge still loose. I opened a room the system marked empty, he said. And when it wasn't, I closed the door. Sadie watched him press the hinge pin into place. Did she believe you? I don't know yet. Across the city, Claire stood inside a conference suite filled with merger advisors, department heads, and people who spoke about risk as though it belonged only to spreadsheets. A framed newspaper cover behind Victor showed Claire's late father beneath the headline Whitmore leads through crisis. Victor pointed toward the muted television, where the leaked clip played beneath a red banner. Your father understood that uncertainty destroys companies, he said. He controlled the narrative before it controlled him. One attorney recommended terminating Ethan before the board arrived. It demonstrates decisive leadership. Claire looked through the glass wall toward the service corridor where Ethan had stood with his back to her door. Leadership over what? The narrative. That was not my question. Maya Brooks entered carrying a preservation notice and a preliminary access summary. Nolan had frozen the hallway footage and its access history, but operations had assumed administrative control of the room status server before he could preserve the event log. Claire closed the merger packet. Issue a litigation hold. Preserve the server image, the work orders, and every communication involving that clip. Victor's expression tightened. You are treating a maintenance employee's excuse like corporate evidence. Because it may be. Maya called Ethan and asked him to return for technical clarification. Am I still suspended? He asked. Yes. Then I do not touch the live system. Agreed. Someone outside operations witnesses the review. Maya looked toward Claire. Agreed. 2 hours later, Ethan entered Whitmore Grand through the public lobby instead of the service entrance. Employees recognized him from the video. One lowered her voice. Another raised a phone until Claire looked directly at him, and he put it away. She met Ethan near the elevators with Maya and Nolan. She did not offer a private apology or ask him to trust her. She handed him a written authorization limiting his role to observation and explanation. Ethan read every line before signing. That was the first thing she did that earned a measure of his respect. Upstairs, Nolan worked from a preserved read-only copy of the server while Ethan stood several feet away. Search the executive floor by fault date, Ethan said. Nolan found the closed report. Ethan gave him the submission dates of the missing 2. Nothing appeared in the active queue. Victor folded his arms. Perhaps you remember filing them. Ethan opened his toolbox, removed a manila envelope, and placed 2 stamped paper copies on the table. I remember keeping them. Claire examined the receiving marks. Both reports had been accepted by Operations Administration. Maya photographed each page and added them to the evidence register. No one praised Ethan. They simply stopped speaking to him like a man defending an excuse. Nolan then opened the preliminary controller history. 43 minutes before Ethan arrived, an operations group credential had forced the room status network into a maintenance mode that stopped occupancy updates on the executive floor. Victor leaned toward the monitor. That could be routine. Ethan looked at the timestamp, then at Claire. Routine maintenance should have a ticket, an owner, and a reason. Nolan searched. There was no ticket. Claire slid the merger packet away from herself. Until that moment, Ethan had been the employee under investigation. Now the system accusing him had become the evidence. You are here to explain the controls, Victor said. You are not here to challenge executive decisions. Ethan stood at the far end of the conference room with no badge on his shirt and no chair offered to him. Through the glass wall, cold rain blurred the Chicago traffic below. On the table, his brass service card remained sealed in plastic. The agenda displayed incident response and risk review. Claire entered with Maya, Nolan, and an independent building controls inspector retained by outside counsel. She placed the yellow folder containing Ethan's paper reports beside the monitor. Mr. Mercer will answer technical questions, she said. No one will characterize his conduct until the evidence is verified. Nolan connected the preserved server image to an isolated terminal. The inspector compared the checksum with the copy created that morning, then nodded. The data has not been altered since preservation. Ethan directed Nolan to the maintenance mode sequence without touching the keyboard. The log confirmed what Part 3 had only suggested. An operations administrator had activated a building management bypass 43 minutes before Claire was moved into the room. Victor leaned back. I approved temporary suppression of nuisance alerts. The executive floor had generated false room status warnings all week. The bypass did more than suppress a warning, Ethan said. The inspector opened the control map. Maintenance mode had frozen room status updates and masked supervisory fault notifications from 2 fire door hold open relays. The fire alarm system still sent the command for those doors to close during a test, but the relays did not report their final position and the dashboard hid the failure. Ethan's second paper report had described the same condition 3 weeks earlier. Claire read the highlighted paragraph. Could people have been trapped? No, Ethan said. The doors are not meant to lock anyone in. The risk is that smoke could travel farther if they fail to close, and no one knows. His refusal to exaggerate made the warning harder to dismiss. Victor tapped the table. The summit begins tomorrow. Taking the executive floors offline would disrupt the merger team. Claire turned to the inspector. What is required? Disable the bypass, inspect every affected relay, and post a fire watch until the doors are verified. Do it. Victor stood. Claire, the board will see this as operational failure. Then they will see an accurate one. She ordered operations removed from control of the investigation and directed Nolan to preserve all video export records. Maya issued the instructions in writing while Ethan watched. A preliminary correction was added to his personnel file. Technician acted in accordance with the displayed room status and a valid work order. It was not final exoneration, but it was the first official sentence that did not place him beneath suspicion. Nolan then opened the security export audit. The leaked clip had not been exported through the security room console. It had been copied through a terminal assigned to Victor's executive assistant 12 minutes after the incident, using credentials authorized by the COO's office. That proves a terminal, not a person, Victor said. Correct, Nolan replied. The forensic review continues. Maya's phone vibrated. The board audit and risk committee had learned that a life safety issue might delay the merger review. Its chair demanded an independent report before the scheduled vote. The financing attached to the deal could be postponed, and 3 struggling hotels depended on it. Claire looked from the yellow folder to Ethan's sealed card. His account had gained ground, but the cost of admitting it had just expanded from one man's reputation to thousands of paychecks. This is counsel's proposal, Claire said. You do not have to answer tonight. Maya sat several chairs away in the empty ballroom, documenting the meeting. Between Claire and Ethan lay a proposed separation agreement, 2 untouched cups of coffee, and the yellow safety folder. Beyond the windows, rain turned Chicago into streaks of red and white. Ethan opened the document, read the release of claims and confidentiality terms, then pushed it back across the linen-covered table. Does signing it correct my record? No, Claire said. Does it repair the doors? No. Then it resolves the company's discomfort, not the problem. By midnight, Victor's strategy had changed. He no longer described Ethan as dangerous. In emails to board advisors, he called him a frightened father under financial pressure, vulnerable to outside influence, and likely to pursue an emotional claim. A man with debts could be pitted, paid, and removed without anyone examining the system that had failed. Claire opened another file. Operations prepared this 6 weeks ago. Ethan read the outsourcing proposal. His position was listed with 43 others scheduled for elimination after the merger. So I was already leaving. If the plan passed unchanged, then Victor didn't need me guilty. Ethan closed the file. He needed me unbelievable. Claire looked toward the dark stage where her keynote banner hung over rows of empty chairs. If I delay the merger, 3 properties may lose financing. People could be laid off anyway. Then show them the real risk and the real numbers. You make that sound simple. No, I make it sound honest. The words landed without cruelty. He was not asking her to burn down the company to save him. He was asking her to stop treating uncertainty as permission to hide. Claire removed the settlement agreement from the table. Counsel will be told you declined. They will not approach you again without your attorney or written consent. Ethan studied her face. That may cost you leverage. It is mine to give up. Trust passed between them in a form neither mistook for affection. The knowledge that one person would not purchase the other's silence. Claire asked why someone with his engineering background had chosen a night maintenance position. Ethan took a worn photograph from his wallet and set it beside the folder. Sadie, 7 years old, slept in a hospital chair with her head against his arm. His late wife was beyond the edge of the frame. My old job required travel, he said. I kept saying yes because every emergency sounded temporary. My family needed someone who came home. Claire did not praise his sacrifice or tell him grief had made him noble. She turned the photograph back toward him. Sadie still needs that. Yes. Then any future conversation about your work respects your schedule with her, or it does not happen. His eyes lifted to hers. She had heard the boundary beneath the story. Before he could answer, Maya's laptop chimed. The Board Audit and Risk Committee, advised by outside counsel because Claire was personally involved in the incident, had approved a statement for release at 6 in the morning. It described Ethan as the subject of an active misconduct investigation and called his safety documents unverified personal copies. Claire read the final line twice. Victor had used the same phrase printed beneath her father's framed crisis headline. Disclosure deferred, pending stabilization. Ethan looked at the time. Once that goes public, the correction will never travel as far. Claire gathered the folder and stood. Then I have 4 hours to decide whether protecting the company means disobeying the people who claim to speak for it. Remove the statement from the release queue, Claire said as she entered the board counsel's conference suite at 2:11 in the morning. Victor looked up from the polished table. 3 attorneys sat beside him, their laptops open, the statement scheduled through the corporate communications system. The Audit and Risk Committee assumed control because you are a witness to the incident, outside counsel said. Only the committee chair can stop publication. Claire placed the yellow folder in front of them. Then wake the chair. The statement omits verified evidence and repeats an allegation our own records contradict. Victor folded his hands. It protects the company while the facts are reviewed. It assigns blame before the review is finished. 6 floors below, Ethan stood in the hotel's mechanical archive with Nolan, Maya, and the independent inspector. His suspension prohibited him from operating company systems, so Nolan used the isolated terminal while Maya maintained the evidence register. Ethan directed them through archived test cycles. At 2:38, the screen showed the maintenance bypass freezing room status updates and hiding supervisory warnings from 2 fire door relays. The alarm controller had issued closure commands during a test, but the doors failed to confirm position. The inspector repeated the sequence from the manufacturer's documentation and obtained the same result. Mr. Mercer's report describes the failure accurately, he said. Nolan exported the audit file, generated a checksum, and signed the chain of custody form. Ethan's state record showed that his professional engineering license was inactive, but in good standing, eligible for reinstatement. His technical judgment did not depend on a title, and the evidence did not depend on his memory. At 5:52, Claire reached the communications office. The media director tried to withdraw the release, but the committee-controlled queue required an authorization code no one in the room possessed. The chair did not return 3 calls before 6. At 6 o'clock, the statement appeared on every company channel. It identified Ethan as an employee under misconduct investigation and dismissed the paper reports as unverified. Claire watched the false language gather views while the authenticated audit remained under legal hold. At 8:05, during homeroom, a student showed the leaked video to Sadie. By 8:18, she had locked herself in a restroom and refused to attend the morning architecture exhibition. The school called Ethan at 8:24. He looked at the signed evidence log in Maya's hands. "Go," she said. "Nolan and I can defend the chain. Victor will challenge every step." Nolan closed the evidence case. Then he challenges mine. Ethan reached the school at 8:47. Sadie sat on the front steps with her model hotel sealed inside a cardboard box. Her shoulders were drawn inward against the cold. Claire called as Ethan crossed the parking lot. "The audit supports you," she said. "The statement should never have gone out. But it did. I tried to stop it." Ethan watched his daughter stare at the pavement. "I believe you. The absence of anger hurt more than accusation. But your silence has a payroll. Mine has a daughter." He ended the call and walked towards Sadie. Behind Claire, the communications monitors continued repeating the statement she had failed to prevent, while the truth remained locked in a case no public reader could yet see. "Did you do something wrong?" Sadie asked without looking up. She sat on the school steps with both hands pressed over the lid of her model box. Ethan lowered himself beside her. Wind off Lake Michigan carried the smell of wet pavement and fallen leaves. "No," he said. "Then why are you acting like you have to disappear?" The question reached the place he had protected for years. Ethan opened the box and lifted out the small red door she had repaired. One hinge was crooked, but it held. "When your mom got sick, I kept saying yes to work," he said. "One more inspection, one more trip, one more emergency someone promised would be the last." Sadie traced a finger along the model's roof. "You came home. Not always when she needed me." He did not describe missed calls or hospital corridors. He placed the worn photograph beside the miniature building. "After she died, I thought staying small would keep work from taking anything else. No promotion, no travel, no reason for anyone to ask more than I could give." Sadie looked at him. But hiding didn't help. Ethan nodded. "No." She closed the box and pushed it toward him. "Then don't let them make hiding the rule." At Whitmore headquarters, Maya had followed the phrase "disclosure deferred pending stabilization" into the company's archived crisis files. She brought Claire a governance report from 20 years earlier, written during her father's celebrated rescue of the company. The framed newspaper cover from the conference suite praised his decisiveness. The internal report told a different story. Across its first page, his handwriting read, "Delay disclosure until market stabilizes." Claire sat alone with the document and understood why Victor's language had felt familiar. She had built her leadership around the belief that control could protect people from chaos. Now Ethan's name had been sacrificed by the same instinct her family had once called strength. She removed the framed article from her office wall and placed it face down. Then she called Ethan at 9:32. He answered beside Sadie's cardboard box. "The committee will meet at 11, Claire said. "I'm disclosing the bypass, the missing reports, the unauthorized video export, the audit, and my delay in correcting the statement. You could lose the company. I could lose my position. The company belongs to more people than me." Ethan looked through the school doors, where parents were carrying models into the exhibition without Sadie. "If I go on the record, they'll examine my finances, my work history, and anything they think makes me easier to dismiss." "Yes." Claire did not offer a guarantee she could not give. "And if we do nothing?" "The statement remains. The outsourcing proceeds. The next employee who reports a danger learns what happened to you." Sadie fastened the red door back onto her model. "Go fix the real one," she said. Ethan held her gaze. "I'll come back for the afternoon showing." "You'd better." At 10:58, Claire entered the boardroom carrying the yellow folder and her father's archived report. Ethan arrived through the public entrance with Maya, Nolan, and the independent inspector. Neither knew whether the board would believe them, whether Claire would still be CEO by lunch, or whether Ethan's name could ever be repaired as widely as it had been damaged. When the doors opened, they walked in for the same reason, not to protect each other from the truth, but to prevent anyone else from being buried beneath it. "Begin with the access log," Claire said, placing the yellow folder at the center of the boardroom table. Victor remained seated beside outside counsel, one hand near the merger documents. "This meeting concerns executive misconduct," he said. "It concerns mine," Claire replied, "and the decisions made through your office." Maya connected the preserved evidence set to the wall display. Nolan identified the chain of custody, the read-only server image, and the checksums created before review. The first record showed an operations group credential activating maintenance mode 43 minutes before Claire was reassigned to the room. The next showed 2 of Ethan's reports removed from the active queue after being received by operations administration. Victor adjusted his cuff. Temporary bypasses were common during conference preparation. No one anticipated a room change. The independent inspector displayed the control sequence. The bypass froze room status updates and masked supervisory warnings from 2 fire door, hold open relays. The alarm system issued closure commands, but the dashboard concealed the failure to confirm position. Victor turned toward the directors. "A configuration error does not excuse unauthorized entry." Ethan sat beside Maya with his toolbox at his feet. He submitted his formal statement, the valid work order, and the stamped paper copies. "I entered because the system marked the room empty," he said. "When I learned it wasn't, I left and protected Ms. Whitmore's privacy. I kept the reports because the electronic records disappeared." He did not mention his lost wages or the strangers who had mocked his daughter. The evidence was enough. Nolan advanced to the security audit. The leaked video had been copied through the terminal assigned to Victor's executive assistant 12 minutes after the incident. An email from Victor's account, sent 4 minutes later, instructed his staff to release a controlled excerpt before Ethan's prior safety complaints could be reviewed. The final line called Ethan the cleanest containment option. Victor leaned toward the microphone. "My office acted to limit reputational damage during a critical transaction." Claire looked across the table at him. "You selected the employee with the least institutional power, removed the context, and called that protection." She faced the directors. "I signed Ethan's suspension. I allowed counsel to delay the correction. The statement was issued through a committee process, but my earlier silence made that process easier. Responsibility for that delay is mine." She pushed the merger presentation aside and requested immediate action. Retract the misconduct language, correct Ethan's personnel record, appoint outside investigators, suspend Victor pending review, audit life safety controls across every property, and remove whistleblower complaints from operations control. The committee chair warned that the merger vote would be postponed and Claire's leadership placed under administrative review. "Understood," she said. The directors voted to adopt the interim findings, preserve all communications, suspend Victor, pause the merger, and issue a limited public correction. When asked what immediate remedies he requested, Ethan looked at the sealed service card on the table. "Correct the record. Protect the employees who report danger. Fix the doors." He did not ask to watch Victor leave. Before Claire's administrative review began, she signed the correction as CEO. It stated that Ethan had acted under a valid work order, relied on inaccurate system data, and had not violated company policy. It also confirmed an independent investigation into the override and unauthorized disclosure. No private witness statement was released. At 1:14, the correction appeared on the same company channels that had named him. His record was restored in writing. Yet his phone still held Sadie's unanswered message asking whether he would make the afternoon exhibition, and Claire's badge had been restricted while the board reviewed her conduct. The truth had earned a place in the record. Neither of them yet knew how much work remained after the record was corrected. 11 months later, a room status dashboard on the 26th floor changed from vacant to occupied the moment a housekeeper entered with her assigned credential. Ethan watched the update, checked the response from the fire door supervisory relays, and signed the commissioning sheet. No applause followed. The system had simply done what people had been promised it would do. Ethan now served as Director of Life Safety and Building Integrity for Whitmore Hospitality Group, reporting to an independent safety committee rather than the CEO. He had reinstated his professional engineering license and accepted the role only after the company adopted whistleblower protections, retained its internal maintenance teams, and gave him a schedule that kept Tuesday evenings and every other Friday untouched. Those were Sadie's nights. His old brass service card rested in a desk drawer beside her cardboard red door, not displayed as a victory, but kept as a reminder that permission could never be inferred from access. The merger had not been saved by a sudden investor or a generous check. It had been renegotiated over 6 difficult months with fewer acquisitions, stricter audits, and no outsourcing of the workers who kept the hotels operating. 2 properties were sold. 1 renovation was delayed. Executive bonuses were reduced. The company survived without pretending the cost had been painless. Victor was dismissed after the outside investigation confirmed the deleted reports, his direction to release the video, and his attempt to use Ethan as a containment strategy. His executive assistant was cleared of independent wrongdoing after the audit showed she had followed a written order without being told the clip omitted material context. Nolan remained security director and rewrote the company's evidence preservation procedures, including a rule that operations could no longer assume control of logs connected to an active investigation. Claire remained CEO after the board review, though she surrendered direct authority over safety complaints, internal investigations, and employee retaliation cases. The changes reduced her power on paper and made the organization more credible in practice. Once a month, she met maintenance and housekeeping employees without presentation slides or prepared speeches. At first, few people spoke. By spring, they brought damaged parts, photographs, and reports that once would have remained in lockers. Ethan and Claire did not begin with romance. They began with coffee in public places after the investigation closed and his reporting structure changed. Some meetings lasted 20 minutes. Some ended early because Sadie needed help with homework or Claire had a property emergency. Claire never punished the words, "Not tonight." Ethan never treated her patience as a debt he owed. Trust grew through ordinary repetition, returned calls, kept appointments, honest disagreements, and the absence of retaliation when one of them set a boundary. Sadie watched all of it. She did not call Claire family or offer immediate approval. When Claire attended her city architecture exhibition, Sadie checked the entrance clock 3 times. Claire arrived 2 minutes early, sat in the second row, and stayed after the crowd thinned to ask why the model's fire doors opened outward. Months later, Sadie asked her to hold one wall steady while she repaired the wiring. It was not affection announced aloud. It was permission given in inches. On a cold October evening, Claire arrived at Ethan's house carrying soup from the neighborhood diner. The porch light warmed the fallen leaves. Through the front window, Sadie's rebuilt hotel model glowed on the dining table, every red exit sign working. The front door stood slightly open, but Claire knocked and stepped back. Sadie reached it first. "You know it was open," she said. "I know. You could have come in." Claire glanced toward Ethan, who stood in the hallway drying his hands on a dish towel. "I wanted someone inside to decide." Sadie considered that, then opened the door wider. "The soup goes in the kitchen." Claire smiled. "Understood." Ethan took the bag from her, and no one needed to explain how far they had traveled from a blue vacant light and 7 seconds of incomplete footage. Grief had not vanished. The future had not become certain, and none of them had been rescued by wealth or position. They had simply learned to open the truth from the inside, and at last, none of them had to carry it home alone. Thank you so much for following this story to the very end. If it touched your heart, there are many more emotional stories about single fathers waiting for you on the channel. Feel free to explore the next story and hit subscribe if you'd like to continue joining us on new journeys.